Welcome,
Good
everyone.
afternoon. Yes, welcome everyone. We have a large audience for our Spotlight on Our Residents today. Our first guest that we're interviewing is Dr. Harry Schrag. Harry, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you start at the very beginning for us and tell us the basics, where you were born, how many in your family of origin, all of that good stuff?
I was born in Minneapolis in 1924 and raised in Minneapolis, and everything else was connected with Minneapolis, going to school and up through college and training, etc. We moved a couple of times.
How many kids in your family? Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, we had a sister who died after she came here from Russia in 1923, and about 3 months after she got here, she got sick and died before I was born, and is buried in New York, in Queens. And Yetta and I went back when we finally, after 10 years of searching, found her grave.
So you and your wife went back years later and searched for her grave. That's beautiful.
No, we did it with genealogy and so forth. When we finally located it, then we went, and my brothers and I put up a monument, and then Yetta and I went back, made a visit to see it.
Beautiful. So you did then.
And I was born shortly thereafter. I don't think I was conceived in Russia, but I always thought maybe I was conceived in Russia because I was born about 8 to 10 months later.
Wow.
In August 1924.
And so your parents did in turn have more boys. So how many brothers do you have?
I have 3 brothers. I'm the oldest, and 3 others who are 88 years old and above. And one living in Woodland Hills who's been here many times with Patty, his beautiful, wonderful wife. And I have a brother in Minneapolis who's a year and a half younger than I am, and a brother who lives out in Riverside.
Wow,
so I have two children, a son, Bruce, and Lynn, who've been here many times and know a number of the residents here as well. She lives in Santa Monica.
Okay.
Yes.
And your daughter's name is? I'm sorry. Bruce is your son. Your daughter is?
Lynn. Her daughter is Lynn, and my son's name is Bruce. He's married to a lovely lady, Robin, who's been here many times and provided a lot of help with plays and speaking. And so many of the older residents here who participated with a lot of things that Robin helped us with. And a granddaughter who is now in Juilliard School of Music, trying to be a musical conductor.
Wonderful. Really? Okay, so let me go back a little, Harry. When you were a little boy in Minneapolis, did you ice fish?
No. I think I'm crazy.
I just want to ask people from Minneapolis if you ever ice fished, because that's, I think, all they could do in the winter. So how old were you when your parents moved to California, or did you move here without them?
No, I moved here without them. I moved here with Yetta, my wife, and we moved here in 1956.
1956. So you met Yetta in Minneapolis? Or
we met in junior high school.
Oh, my goodness. It was a love from junior high school. So many of you have met your loved ones in junior high and high school here. I love that. Okay, so you met in junior high, And did Yetta you stayed in touch all the way through college. Did she put you through medical school?
No.
No. So tell us how you got
we met in junior high. We got married very young. I was 20. She was 21. And we became engaged when I got into medical school. And then the war came on.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in the Army after, at 18, I signed up for the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And by that time, I'd had about a year and a half of college. And having done much of my medical pre-med work, the Army, and after I drafted, they sent me to a medical school. So they sent me to the medical school. So I went through my medical training as an Army person.
Oh my gosh. Really? Okay. So
The ASTP. So there was good or bad how I've been, but I was the luckiest guy in the world because I went through medical school during my Army tour, and the war finished when I had 1 year left, and so I was discharged, and then I was redrafted for the Korean War. By that time, I had been in practice for a few years, and I was drafted into the Air Force in 1951 for the Korean War. And then I was, again, the luckiest guy in the whole world because they sent me to Great Falls, Montana. And by that time, I was married and had 2 children. And I stayed in Montana the entire 2 years that I was in the Korean War, so I couldn't have been luckier, the luckiest guy in the whole world. Good. And after that, I returned to Minneapolis to finish my residency in surgery. And then after that, we came out to California in 1956.
I see. Okay. So how proud of you were your mom and dad?
Well, my mother...
You became a doctor?
Well, my father was a doctor. I'll tell you a funny story about my dad. My dad was a tailor. And late in life, I sat with him and I said, Pa, you know, I follow you. He says, what do you mean? I said that, well, you're a tailor. You cut and sew. And I'm a surgeon, and I cut and sew. And he got so angry with me. What do you mean you're a doctor, you're not a tailor? He didn't think it was very funny. But anyway, my mother died when I was 14.
Oh.
So Yetta and I got married. My dad was still a widower, and then he later remarried. And so.
Mm-hmm. And did you, before the Army, Harry, did you have a boyhood dream to be a doctor, or did you just fall into it in the Army?
I really can't answer that. You know, from early time, we were talking about going to medical school. Mm. And my dad didn't have any business or anything that I could take over. And somehow that just seemed to be the natural thing. I don't know whether it was talking about it as we grew up. And the day I graduated high school, which was in 41, all I did was I had a job at night as an usher in the theaters. And I didn't have anything to do in the daytime, so I graduated high school. And then I got a token from my dad, and I went and took a streetcar out to the university. I went to some office I was so naive and innocent in a sense. I went and I registered at the university and I went to college, because I had nothing to do in the daytime. And so I got, fortunately, I got so many credits done before I was 18. I was really, that really solidified my Army direction. And they sent me to medical school.
Okay. Well, I love that you've twice said you're the luckiest guy in the world, and you've said that to me before, and your attitude has really...
I can't ever forget it.
Because you survived 2 wars, and that truly is... I love your attitude. We talked about that on Veterans Day. So let's bring you out to California. You arrive here with Yetta. Is it, you settled where when you moved here?
Well, when we moved here, we first settled out in Westchester, and I had joined Kaiser. I got a job with Kaiser in the harbor area and at that time.
In the what area?
In Harbor, near San Pedro, Harbor City.
Oh, the Harbor City area. Okay.
Yeah.
And tell us your specialty. Was it surgery?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So what are your favorite surgeries to perform, Harry? Or tell us your most thrilling surgery.
I don't think there's any
really?
favorite.
Really?
No.
Nothing favorite. Can you imagine, can you believe how far we've come with surgeries? I'm sure we've come a long way.
I would not be qualified if I was looking for a job. I would not be qualified.
Okay. Well, you're very humble also. Okay, so you had both children, Bruce and Robin. Then when did you move to Woodland Hills from the Westchester area?
Well, we stayed in the Westchester. Generally, moved into larger homes. And the last home that we lived in while I was working was at Mountain Gate. That's up just just above the Getty Center. The
right.
Getty.
That steep hill that you drive up.
We lived there. Well, we lived there for about 30 years, and as we got older, Yetta and I moved into Fountainview in 2010.
2010. So this is good for people who don't know you that well. Fountainview, you moved in 2010 with your beautiful wife, Yetta. And then when did Yetta pass away? How long ago has it been?
She died April 2016.
Oh, so you lived here 6 years together. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. 2016.
And Carolyn, Harry, the moment you said that Yetta passed April 2016, I look at my clock, it is 4:16 right now.
Oh my gosh, Lori, I just got shivers. Oh, wow.
What's that?
When you said April 16th, Yetta passed, Lori and I looked at our clocks, and it says 4:16 on the clock.
That's a miracle.
So Yetta's with you. Yeah? Isn't that cool? I love that you pointed that out, Lori. Okay. Oh, my gosh. So, Harry, you just, I don't know how you all do it with your partners. You've had a lifelong mate, and you were alone for a while here. And then tell everyone the kind of really sweet love story I've known from you, that you were graced with love again.
That's true. I have a good friend that I knew for 75 years. Her name is Dorothy Geiler. She lives out at the University Village. And what happened is that she was at the funeral. She and I and her first husband and Yetta were good friends. I have a photograph of the four of us when in the 40s.
Oh.
So we knew each other socially for Jerry, her husband, and I grew up together, went to medical school together, et cetera, and his whole family. And then when he married Dorothy, we remained very close social friends. And even after we both moved out to California, and we remained that way. And so,
Oh my goodness.
so they were and shortly after she died, we met again, and then started up a relationship.
Really? That's amazing. It's a beautiful segue to have that history, and Yetta knew Dorothy. How wonderful. I just love that. So tell us how you and Yetta came to find Fountain View. So you chose to move to Fountain View together. How did you make that decision?
Well, friends of ours were already starting to move into senior citizen places, and we recognized inevitability in this. We wanted to get a nice place, so we started looking, and then the Jewish home appealed to me because I knew they had all the subsequent facilities. And as people grow older, and tragically I had to use them. But because when I was in practice, we used to tell families, okay, your dad or somebody needs a nursing home, go out and find a nursing home, and then we'll transfer him, or something like that. And so I knew that they had rehab units affiliated with the unit affiliated with the home, and that they had mental units, they had rehab units, and things like that. That I would not have to worry about any placement issues. And I remember we had a friend, a very close friend who was not Jewish, who lived in the valley. We worked together, and he had a hip fracture or something, needed surgery, belonged to Kaiser, of course, because he was a physician with us. I went to Panorama City, and we used to see each other after we retired to have lunch, dinner periodically. They were just lovely people. We were very close to them. We hadn't seen them for a few months when I got a note from the concierge here that a Mrs. Zimmer asked me to call. So I called her. I figured she wanted to set a date for dinner or lunch or something like that. So I said, yeah, where do you want to go? So Nida said, I don't want to go anyplace because Stan is in your rehab unit. And we asked why, what happened, etc. And at Panorama City, Kaiser, they told to find a nursing home. So they have a daughter who's a nurse who looked at 3 or 4 places that Kaiser Panorama suggested, and she said, I wouldn't have a dog go there. And so she heard that Jewish home had the rehab. She did that, and they loved it, and they came there. So she says, do you think they'll treat me okay if I'm not Jewish? And, so that was just a little example.
That's great. Of course, as a doctor, that's how you chose wisely, knowing that the different steps in life that we might need it. So that's great. And so what do you think? Now, I want to mention to everyone before we conclude our half hour, I can't believe it's almost a half hour already, Harry. We have discovered here, I know you said Robin, your daughter-in-law, has helped with creative writing. we discovered, a lot of us, that you're quite a writer yourself, that you wrote a book about the coronavirus blues. I'm still waiting for our fall edition to come back of our newsletter, and it will be in there. Have you always been somewhat creative as well as a doctor?
Well, the only creative thing that I've done was not writing. But I've done a lot of I've got a lot of sculpting.
That's right.
A lot of sculptures that I did after I retired. And a number of the older residents here have seen it. We used to have some art shows. Be nice to have one, but it's hard to do it now.
I know, and we all look forward to the day when we can have those rooms open and art shows. And boy, what is your advice to everyone with this COVID-19? What do you think as a doctor?
I really know nothing about it, to be honest.
You know nothing about it. Okay.
I just, whatever Fauci says is what I would go for. Not that jerk president that we have.
Okay.
Oh boy.
So you're in the dark like we all are, right? Okay. So we all are just feeling we're just being led to vote, I guess. Thank you, Harry. Okay, Lori. And
Harry, I know we're running out of time for you, but I remember, and maybe some of you who are listening remember, Harry, maybe it was 5 years ago, you shared a story about being an early doctor and helping farm workers.
Yeah, well, I did 3 years of general practice in southern Minnesota right after my internship, and took care of some farm workers that were the most inhumane thing that I've ever seen, where people were treated like animals. As a matter of fact, in one of the farms where I saw a patient, it was an abandoned Victorian farmhouse with windows and screens all broken up. And if you've not been in Minnesota in the summertime, the mosquitoes can eat you up. And families of Mexicans lying there with this woman who was having a miscarriage at the time. And they had abandoned, and they had others in an abandoned chicken coop. They had a chicken coop that they cleaned out, got rid of the chickens, or did put them someplace else, and housed families in those low chicken coops. It was just the most inhumane experience I've ever had. And so when I go out to Oxnard and see all these strawberry pickers and stuff like that, it just it reminds me of that. And so, and then of course the farmer never.
Didn't you deliver a baby for them, Harry? Am I remembering that story?
Well, not on them. I have a lot of baby stories if you ever want to.
Okay, another time.
Yeah.
I remember that you saying that you provided them with medical care, and that was your mitzvah, and that you provided them.
How can you not? You know, and certainly the farmer never approached me to ask if he wanted, if he could pay me, of course, and I couldn't. Yeah. These people, inhuman people, were brought up from Texas in an open truck, families, no food, no nothing, to drive 1,000 miles just to get work. So I just broke my heart and just taught me a huge lesson about those who are less fortunate than we are.
Yeah. Thank you, Harry. I really appreciate your story, and Lori, we're in good hands. If we get pregnant here, Harry will deliver our babies.
Easy. Well, I have all sorts of.
It will be the Immaculate Conception if it's me. Don't worry. So, Harry, thank you so much. And I want to remind everyone before I sign off with Harry, please email Lori or myself if you're not too shy, and we'll put you on Spotlight, okay, in the weeks to come. Thank you, Harry.
Okay, thank you.
And don't go anywhere, everyone. We are going to do John Beyer next. So thank you, Harry. I'm going to put Harry on mute. And
Okay.
John, go ahead and hit *6 and unmute yourself. Hi, John.
Here I am. Hello.
Hineni. You should say Hineni. Here I am, right?
Here I am, sure.
Good. And John, I just want to make sure you're talking nice and loud and clear into your phone.
How would I?
Okay. So John, we are, first of all, John, you do so much for Fountain View, so I want to take this opportunity to thank you for being on the Jewish Activities Committee. And just so all of you know listening, John came to Carolyn and I multiple times concerned about the high holidays, making sure people knew how to get onto a service, just being such an advocate for the holidays. So thank you, John. So John,
Okay.
I can't wait to learn about you. Let's start at your childhood. Where were you born?
I was born at St. Vincent's Hospital in Los Angeles.
Okay, of course, born in LA. So John was born in LA, just like the club. And
Yep.
so where?
And I was actually in that hospital twice. Once when I got born, and once when I had a kidney stone removed.
Oh, did it look familiar when you went for your kidney stone?
I have no idea. I'll just know that that's where Kaiser did their. That's where Kaiser went. And Harry's talked about Westchester. Well, I grew up in Westchester, and he talked about Kaiser in Harbor City. Well, that's where I spent about 20 years with Kaiser. So I got to really ask him some questions. Maybe he knows some of the people I know.
Okay, you'll have to schmooze later. And that's what's so great about this program is you learn things about each other. So John, you were born in LA, you were raised in Westchester. Tell us about your family, how many siblings, your parents, what did they do?
Well, I was born in St. Vincent's, but I grew up for the first 11 years in El Segundo, not Westchester. My parents in 1944 borrowed money, and for $4,000 they bought a 2-bedroom home in El Segundo. Mm-hmm. So we moved to El Segundo when I was 2 years old. I had my sister who was born in 44, so she was born right when we moved into the house. So it was my sister and I, and then my brother came in 1951, so that was much later.
Okay, so you're the firstborn, the eldest child?
Yep.
Okay, and your parents now, where were your parents born?
My dad and mom were both born in LA. My mother's a graduate of LA High School. My dad's a graduate of Marshall. And so I'm the second generation in Los Angeles.
That is so rare, and that is so amazing. So your roots are very.
All my grandparents were in LA in 1910.
Wow.
All my grandparents moved to LA in 1910. So.
Wow. Okay. And what did your parents do?
They didn't like that cold weather back there, and I'm just very grateful to them.
Absolutely. And what did your parents do for a living?
My dad was a meat cutter. His father, my grandfather, owned 2 stores in LA, one on Fountain Avenue in the 30s and early 40s, and then another one in West Adams in the late 40s and the 50s. And so he sort of grew up in the market business, and he went in, I don't know what he was doing before he went into service. He went into service in 45, I think, 46, something like that. He had a deferment because of 2 kids, but he ended up going in the Navy. But it was right at the end of the war, so he didn't see any real action. But he was a meat cutter in Playa del Rey for the time that I was growing up. Worked at a market there, and the market's actually still there.
Wow.
And, behind the market, they had a stable, and that's where I learned to ride horses.
Oh my God.
Used to take the horses out and ride along the beach, which was a lot of fun.
Sounds like an amazing childhood.
Well, it was fun. My mother, the first couple of years, worked at the bowling alley in El Segundo, and then later, my dad got out of the service. She got a job and medical assistant for a couple of doctors in Westchester, and she actually worked for them, well, for at least one of them for 35 years, running his office. I used to come home, remember with the polio shots? I used to come home, my mother says, roll up your sleeve and hit me with a polio shot.
Wow. Again,
also, if I remember too, she gave us the sugar cubes too. So.
The sugar cubes. Wow. Okay.
So that's what happens when you have somebody in the medical business.
Now,
but, I went to Richmond Street Grammar School for 3 years, first, second, third grade. And then I went to Center Street for the 4th, 5th, and 6th year. I was lucky there was a school there because before they built the school, I burned the field down with a friend of mine. So that was an exciting adventure.
Yeah.
I had a very interesting childhood.
I'm hearing that. I mean, horseback riding behind the meat market in Playa del Rey does sound very interesting. Now, tell us about your Judaism. Did your parents, were they involved in a community? When did that show up for you?
Showed up when I moved to Westchester when I was 11 years old. And my mother, I guess, decided that it was time to join a synagogue so I could get bar mitzvahs. So there wasn't anything in El Segundo, so we moved to Westchester, and there were 2 synagogues in Westchester. And we joined Temple Israel of Westchester. And I studied with the rabbi's wife for 6 months before my bar mitzvah in order to get ready for it. So it was challenging. I had about 1.5 years to get ready. And I did. I got ready and had a bar mitzvah, and my mother threw the party in our house. And I've got a 3-minute movie of the bar mitzvah, so that's always exciting when I see it.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and I got, I was, going to religious school, whatever they call it, it was a Reformed temple, and I got into the confirmation class. So I was in confirmation class and confirmed at 16 along with, I think about 14 other kids. I've even got a picture of the confirmation class. So. But when I was about, I think, 14 and a half, one of the teachers asked me if I wanted to be an assistant teacher because they were short on teachers. So I became an assistant teacher, and I did that up until the time I went in the service. I actually ended up having my own class because they were short, and so I had my own class for a couple of years too. And I went to the Hebrew Union College and got 16 units there while I was in high school.
Okay, so you were very academic. Once you were post bar mitzvah, you were academic. Were you still riding horses, or was that kind of left behind in El Segundo?
No, there was a stable there. I rode. There was another stable up in Ladera Heights and that hill area, and I rode horses up there and stuff like that. But I was also in AZA for 5 years, so that was a fun experience. A lot of guys I'm still friends with today.
What? I didn't hear that. What were you for 5 years?
AZA.
What does that mean?
Aleph Tzadik Aleph. It's a Jewish fraternity. It's part of B'nai B'rith. You have AZA and BBG.
Okay. I know BBG because that's for women. I know BBG, but I didn't know AZA.
Well, AZA is for boys. Yeah. Well, if you were in BBG, you'd have to know AZA because the social life was all the socials we did every month with BBGs all over LA. I dated girls in all parts of LA because of BBG and AZA. So,
wow. Okay, so John was involved, you were involved in the Jewish community ever since high school. That's amazing. So tell us about college and career.
what college? What career? when I was in Cub Scouts in El Segundo, I sold the most Scoutorama tickets of anybody by about 2 to 1. And when I was in Westchester, I got a job. The first job was washing dishes and busboying. But after that, my mother got me a job through Lead Shoe Stores. So I sold shoes for the whole time I was in high school. And so I've always been in sales. So sales is what I do. Even today, I just got off an hour meeting with one of my clients. So, you know, education, you know, I don't know. I got 18 units at Santa Monica City College, but then again, I had to get a job. So I got a job in sales with Ford and Chemical, worked for them for 6 years as a sales rep from territory, ran from Los Angeles to San Antonio, Texas. And I was looking at a picture yesterday with my motorcycle in the back of my station wagon that I used to carry my samples in. And so I used to ride my motorcycle all over the Southwest, and I used to go into small cities in Arizona and Texas and New Mexico, and you know.
Okay, so I have to stop because, you know, not many people ride horses and fewer people ride motorcycles. So tell me about, how did your mother feel about you riding on a motorcycle?
What did she have to say with it? I was an adult.
Okay, and how did that happen? How did that show up in your life to learn how to ride a
motorcycle? Well, it was interesting. I had a friend, Steve, who I'm still friends with today, and actually he just gave up his bike about 6 months ago, but he's always had a bike. I had one for about 5 years, but when I was married and having kids, I ended up giving that up because it didn't make sense. But I rode a motorcycle all over, and in fact, my ex-wife and I used to ride all the time, and got some interesting stories I can tell from that, because we were once riding up a hill in Long Beach near Santa Fe Boulevard where the railroad tracks were. Got halfway up the hill, dropped the bike and grabbed her, and the bike went down the hill, but I saved her. So,
wow.
A lot of fun experiences like that. It was a Honda 305. It was just a small street bike, and it's a lot of fun to ride. I rode it all over the place. Had a rack on the back of my car, and you know, could take it wherever I wanted it.
Amazing. So here we are. I didn't know John rode a motorcycle. Did you know that, Carolyn?
No, I didn't. Although I saw the pictures of John in a cowboy hat, so I knew you were an urban cowboy, John.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You have great pictures.
The emphasis is on urban.
Yeah, well, you look like the Marlboro Man in one of them, so yeah, you should display them.
Well, I was playing around with pictures. The 2 pictures, the one you saw with the Grand Canyon behind me, and then the other one with my motorcycle on the car. So.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question, John, regarding, because your specialty is insurance, and I know you've done very well as an insurance salesperson. Tell us how you feel. Do you have any advice for what our nation should be doing with insurance? Should we privatize? Like, I want to know your political views about our insurance problems.
Well, you know, insurance is, you know, what I do is health insurance. Insurance covers a lot of areas, but in the health insurance market, obviously everybody knows we have what's called ACA. Well, that, when it first came in, I had my doubts about. In fact, I wasn't exactly pro-ACA. But as I found it working, and it works well, and it actually has done what needed to be done, was it allows everybody in. You create a pool. and you can keep rates down because you have everybody in the game. And that's what people don't understand. The more people in the game, the lower you can keep the rates because it spreads the risk. So I become an ACA proponent, and I would like to see ACA continue and be improved because there's certain things that can be done to improve it. I mean, it wasn't a perfect law, but it did work in a lot of ways. And, you know, if certain people would learn to leave things alone and not touch things and try to destroy and ruin them, it would be better off. So we'll just have to see what happens, but it does work.
I love that. I love that you so clearly explained. So many people in our culture are afraid of socialized medicine. So what would you say to someone who's wavering, there's levels of socialized?
We don't have socialized medicine. We don't have socialized medicine. We have a system that works. Now, should we have socialized medicine? I don't know. I mean, quite frankly, if you look at Medicare, Medicare is a socialized system.
Correct.
And Medicare works. Certain people leave it alone. And we have access to private doctors within socialized medicine. And I think that's what people like. They can go to the doctor they want because that's the way Medicare was designed. So you have a system that's somewhat socialized, but has the elements of being able to use private practice, and so people are comfortable with it. And I think if we would develop systems along that line, which ACA really has done, it's workable because we have one of the best healthcare systems, bar none, in the world, and people don't really believe that, but it is a very good system when it works.
It works. Thank you, John. Sorry to interrupt. Lori needs to go to. Lori, you need to go to his love life now.
Thank you. Thank you. Exactly. We're ready. We're ready for some romance, John. So I'll let you, John, just share what you want to share about your love life, your romance, your family, whatever.
I don't have any problem sharing anything. I'm an open book. If people don't like it, I'm sorry. It's my life. I had to live it, and I'm not bashful about my life at all.
That's good.
When I was 19 years old in the service, and I got out of the service, and I had to go back up to Reno, Nevada, where I was stationed. I had to go back up there because I was a witness in a trial of a manslaughter case that a friend of mine and I witnessed, and I decided to go on a date with a girl that I knew from before, and we ended up getting married, which was, it's just one of those weird things that people do. It was weird, and anyway, it lasted about 9-10 months, and got a divorce.
Got it. So it was a quick romance.
Yeah, sort of. And the next time I got married, I met the girl at a BBYO function, which is B'nai B'rith Youth Organizations. I was out here at the Encino Bowling Alley, the bowling with BBYO, so I met her there. Nice Jewish girl. Funny thing is, she had babysat my cousins up in Burbank. My cousins that know Rabbi Tomsky. So anyway, so we dated for a while and got married, and I got married in San Diego, and I was traveling with Borden Chemical at the time, and she was working doing things, and anyway, so it was about 10 months into the marriage, started having a little rocky, went to a therapist, and came out of the therapy meeting. He looked at me and said, "John, give up, go away, it's not going to work." So that didn't work. And then got married again. I was having dinner with an uncle who lived in Lakewood, who had married and had 3 kids. And he was married originally to my aunt, who was my mother's sister. And my mother's sister passed away when she was 29, so he had remarried. Anyway, so we were having dinner, and his wife, Rochelle, said, "Hey, I got somebody you want to meet. You want to meet him?" And I'd only been separated a couple of months, so I said, "Sure." So I went over and met this girl and ended up dating her. And a year later, we got married and had 2 kids, and we were married for about 12 years. And she was a wannabe singer and ended up getting into a band and rehearsing 7 nights a week. And I said, you can have your band, but I'm not going to babysit 7 nights a week. So,
Wow.
you know, so that didn't work. And there was another marriage that didn't work either.
Tell us about your 2 children.
My 2 children, I have a son, David, and a daughter, Felicia. Son lives out in Tustin. Daughter lives in, right now, she's living in a house that I own in Long Beach. She just got separated this last year. She has 2 kids. I have 2 granddaughters that are 17 and 15. And they're doing well. They're straight A students. I don't know where they got it, but they're both straight A students. So amazing. Well, they're hard workers. The older one, I mean, she's amazing. She's like an old woman anyway, but she's so steady, it's not even funny. And she's just a very strong student. She's a very strong personality.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
Okay.
Anyway, the love of my life is my last wife, and we've married going on 26 years, and it's been the best thing that ever happened to me. She likes being Jewish. I like being Jewish, so we have been in a synagogue together for years, and we do things that are Jewish. She lived in Israel for a while. I've worked at Hadassah Hospital, and she's fantastic.
And most of us have, maybe a few new people never had the opportunity to meet Jeannie, but we've all met and seen Jeannie. She's lovely. She's adorable.
Yep. She's always got a smile on her face.
Yes.
Never seen her without a smile.
Beautiful. And so how did you and Jeannie end up back in the valley? Did you live in the valley with Jeannie?
No. We had a house in Long Beach on the water.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we had to give it up. But, you know, it's the way of life. So, but we had 23 years of a lot of pleasure. Had a boat and, you know, dock, and our backyard was water and palm trees, and it was wonderful.
That sounds beautiful, John. That sounds beautiful.
It was, believe me. I always wanted to live on, you know, I've always lived near the beach, within 2 or 3 miles of the beach, but I never lived on the water. So being able to live on the water was fantastic.
Well, you're still living near the water. Isn't the LA River right under your window?
Thanks Lori. A lot. You want some of the stories I've seen out my back window?
And talk about Fountain View. How did a guy from Long Beach end up here in Reseda?
Because in 1986, when my mother passed away, I became my grandmother's, I don't know what you want to call it, but anyway, so I needed to
power
do
of attorney?
With her. No, I don't know. So anyway, I needed to do something with her, and I knew about the Jewish Home because I'd been in Federation and JCA for years. I was on boards all over the city. I used to go to 100 meetings. And so I knew about the home. So I happened to also be talking to my aunt, who happened to know somebody who was very high up in the Jewish Home. So at the time she moved in, they were building the newer buildings at Grand Cell. And so she moved into the single-story buildings there. And she was there for 6 years. She passed away when she was 92. She moved in there when she was 86. So I got a picture of her being at the Jewish Home. I got a picture of me being at the Jewish Home. So, but you know, I've known about the Jewish Home because of Federation, Jewish Centers, and her. I was active in doing fundraisers for a while. You know, they do their annual fundraising walk. I come out and do that, and I brought my kids with me and stuff like that. So I knew a lot about the Jewish Home. And you know, my wife is very simple. She said, because I had her in a facility in Long Beach, and she says, I want to be in a Jewish facility. So, okay, sell the house and we're moving. So.
And John,
This
can
was
can I ask how old was Jeannie when she was diagnosed?
78, so 70, since 74, 74 and a half, something like
She
that.
was still very young. That must have been really hard for you.
Well, she doesn't have dementia. I mean, she doesn't have Alzheimer's. She has frontal lobe dementia. So she is so different than most of the people that, have Alzheimer's. It's not even funny.
Right. And tell us the difference. What is frontal lobe dementia compared to Alzheimer's?
Well, frontal lobe dementia is you have the frontal lobes of the brain, and usually that area, you have a loss of oxygen or you have a stroke or something. We don't have no idea because Ginny has unbelievable memory. Ginny had 5 scholarships to college, so that's how bright she is. And she's still pretty bright. I figured she was going to be taking care of me. It didn't work out that way. I lost my nurse.
Oh.
Although I still, it's funny because when I've had something or something's going on, I ask her questions. She knows the answers.
Okay, so she still has logic. Okay, so
oh yeah.
the frontal lobe is reasoning, right? For those doctors, they can tell us. Yeah,
behavior, reasoning, food issues, different things. So it's different. She's probably only one of 2 or 3 people over there that have frontal lobe because frontal lobe is less than 10% of the population. Most of the population is Alzheimer's, but then there's 10 or 15 types of dementia.
Well, my heart has gone out to you and others here whose loved ones are in the other buildings and you can't visit. Have you had any cyber visits on? Do they?
Oh yeah, I got her a Kindle, so she.
Good.
I can video chat on the Kindle, and she can now watch her movies, and so she's got certain movies that she watches that she likes. And I can't get her to do games. I've been trying to get her to do games, and for somebody who used to read 2 books a week, she doesn't read anymore either. Although I take her to synagogue and she'll sit there with the sitter and she'll read she knows how to read prayer by heart, but she still uses the books. So I can't figure out there's no logic to the differences. So.
Right. Right. Okay.
But she knows.
I'm
she knows all the holidays.
I'm very touched by your dedication, John, to Jeannie, and you are a get it done type of person, and I know you're doing everything that you can for her at this time.
Oh yeah, there's nothing I won't do.
So any advice for people, just because you've evolved so much as a human being, and been through motorcycles, horses, boats to get here to Fountain View. Any advice to any on any subject?
The only thing I can tell you is if you're presented with a problem, find a solution. They said they weren't going to build a sukkah. I said, okay, you don't want to build a sukkah? I've got a sukkah on my patio.
That's
right.
$99, and I've got my own sukkah. Okay, so I'm telling you, they closed the gym. After a couple of months, I said, I can't do this anymore. I've got a treadmill sitting in my apartment. So, if you got a problem, find a solution because there's a solution to every problem. So that's one of the things I do is I solve problems.
I love it, and that sounds like a sales pitch. Have a problem? I've got a solution. Call John.
Lori.
And John, you've been so helpful also with the residents. I know you've helped a few residents with Zoom, and we just so appreciate you always again advocating for residents here, for your neighbors, for your friends, and leading the community.
We sure do,
John.
John.
Part of life.
I know, but you're very, if anyone needs information, particularly if any of our new residents are on this phone call, John is a great resource for how do you get food deliveries from your favorite restaurants. So he'll hook you up, right, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you got a phone that works.
Okay.
So this has been a wonderful session. If anyone has questions or comments, you can call Harry or John directly. I'm sure they'd be happy to hear from you. And yes, you can see John Sukkah from the driveway, actually, on the side of on the LA River side of the building. You can't miss it. It's like a cobalt blue color, and you can't miss it. So great job, John. And it was so nice to learn about both John and Harry. Any final comments, Carolyn?
No, just again, encouraging other residents to ask for more details about either of these gentlemen's lives. And again, Lori or I, if you just shoot us an email, Sweet Lori is taking a 2-week vacation. So starting next, when, Lori? Next Thursday, the 15th, Lori will be taking a well-deserved vacation, so you can all bother me with emails, okay? So if you'd like to sign up for Spotlight On in the future, please drop us a line, because when people say it in passing, it tends to go in one ear and out the other. I forget, so.
Yes, and I know Mickey Mandel told me she'd like to be interviewed.
Oh, good,
so we got
good.
Mickey, and I'd love to get a few more people so we can schedule some. So.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
And remember our programming tomorrow. Lori has a wonderful couple who are singing, Rick and Wendy. Go ahead, Lori, you say it.
Yeah, thank you. Let me pitch this real quick. You all remember Rick and Wendy, and they've been here many times, and they are very versed in Jewish music. So they are going to lead a Simchat Torah and Jewish music concert tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I emailed you all the link today. You can also just call in if you don't have a device to watch the Zoom on. The information is on the flyer that went out. I think yesterday it went out. And then at 4 o'clock, we have our usual Zoom Shabbat, but we're welcoming, along with Shabbat, Shemini Atzeret, and we're also going to welcome in advance Simchat Torah. So lot of beautiful things tomorrow, everyone, and so have a good night, rest up, and we'll hear you soon.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Bye,
have a nice
everyone.
dinner.